Alright, so I was mowing leaves earlier and I happened to notice a bunch of oil on the deck. Well, at first I thought it was the output seal on the bottom of the gearbox there, because I had to replace that already once. So I thought maybe it was leaking again. When I got down under there, I noticed it was actually leaking from underneath the tractor onto the deck. So let me show you what's going on. When I got down under here and started looking, it was dripping from right there. Now these are the steering. There's actually two of these. One's gone right now. And cooling. And I noticed it was coming from up in that hole up there. I could feel a bunch of oil on top of it. So what I did was pulled the side covers off. Just one screw on each side here for this cover. Pulled this cover off. It's sitting up there now. And I was able to start seeing the fluid up in here. It's wet. It's wet up in here. And right there you can see where the steering lines connect to this thing. I don't know what that is. Some kind of hydraulic motor, I guess. But that's what the steering shaft connects to. And I don't know if you can see this. Let me do it with my flashlight. So right there, I have that line disconnected. There's one there and one there. So that line, before I disconnected it, you see a drip there. Watching that, when I was turning the steering wheel, you could see oil squirting out from underneath the fitting. So I figured the line had a hole in it. So, well, actually first I used the 17mm wrench, and I was able to get about a quarter turn out of tightening it up. So I thought maybe that was it. Tried it again, still squirted. So I pulled the line off, loosened it up there, let the fitting drop, and then down underneath, there's just some retainers. Right there's one, I got it out down here on the floor. One right here. And then I disconnected it from the rubber hose and pulled the line out. Now this is what we got. So this is the surface here that was up to that steering part at the wheel. So I don't see anything wrong with the hose or with the line. So I was then thinking, how's this thing made up here? And what it does is where it goes up in there, it's the same on both sides. There's a little O-ring. So you reached up in here. While looking at the back side here, I reached from right here with my little pick and pried out this O-ring. And this is what came out here. Focus, you bastard. No, I really don't see much wrong with this thing. It is flat a little bit, and it's kind of hard, but this here looks like the right size. It's probably standard. This one's probably metric, but it's close enough, I think. And that is G. Part number, it's 3/8 by half by 1/16. So I'm gonna pop this back in there, pop this line back in and see if it still leaks. All right, so I got it back on there with the new O-ring, and I'm gonna turn the steering shaft. See, it's still coming out there. That's frustrating. I'm not sure why. I didn't see anything wrong with the line. I wonder if it's this stupid mechanism up here. All right, more investigations. Okay, guys. So, find my flashlight. Put the new line in. Let's see here. Is that bugger right there? Yep, right there. So it's the one on the left side when you're sitting on the tractor. It's on the front left of this part right here. That's the one I had to replace. So a few things. Come over here. All right, so this is the line that I replaced. This is the old one. I don't know if it was leaking. If there's a pinhole in it here somewhere. This is necked down real far here. The new one's not like that. It's a little better design. But I have a feeling it was something with the surface here or the O-ring that was leaking. Now, I tried to put a new O-ring in it and reuse this, and it still leaked. But I didn't do it right. And I didn't realize it until I got the new line on. What you should do is put a dab of grease on the O-ring when you stick it up in there, and it'll stay. And then watch it real close as you're putting this fitting on, that stays in place. I probably should have tried that before I put the $75 line on. But nonetheless, the new part's on, it's not leaking. This is the part number on the oil line. It was $75. This is the part number for the O-rings. Those were $1.50 each, but I didn't even use those. Honestly, they were too big. I couldn't get them to stick in there right. There seemed like there was a lot, it needed squished together a little more, and I didn't want it to kink in there. So what I ended up going with was this E size right here, which is Parker part number 2-011. No, 010. It's a 1/4 inch by 3/8 by 1/16. And it fit in there perfect. So I ended up using that part number. I don't know if you can get this one to work. It's worth the $1.50 to try it. But for whatever reason, it wouldn't go in on mine. New lines in, new O-rings in. I got the lines all buttoned up. I do need to find out if I need to bleed that or not. Since it's not, I don't think it's a closed system because it's got a breather back here, I believe. I don't know. I need to look into that real quick, and I'll let you know for sure. All right, so after a little bit of research here, the general consensus I'm finding is that you do not need to like manually bleed these. Since it's part of the whole hydraulic system, it'll actually vent itself or bleed itself. It just says after you replace it to turn full lock to lock a few times and it'll bleed itself out. So if something doesn't feel right or if I end up having to do something different than that, I'll report back, but that's the route I'm going now. So I'm gonna go ahead and button this all back up and I'm gonna call this job done. All right, a couple things that I forgot to mention here. I got it all buttoned back up, but check your fluid, your hydraulic fluid. I had to add, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 quarts of high guard. I happen to actually have some extra, so that worked out. But if you don't have any extra, make sure you get some. You're going to need it. And then down below here, I had this line right here. This is the one I replaced, but this is the one that runs next to it. I had to tweak this over after it was all done because it was rubbing the drive shaft. It's right close to it, so you might have to tweak this a little bit. If it's making a bunch of racket, it sounded like garbage. That's how I knew. So keep that in mind. All right, so the situation develops here. Turns out it wasn't just that line being too close. This is probably what caused the whole failure all to begin with. This is the front U-joint on the drive shaft, right behind the motor. It's junk. And I'm a little pissed off right now because it looks like this is maybe not a serviceable part. Well, maybe it is, I don't know. I can't tell if that's... I would have to imagine there's a way this comes out of here. So I'm gonna try to get this U-joint out, see if I can go get another one at the parts store. It's the weekend and John Deere, it's bank hours. And it's probably $428 at John Deere and $7 at the parts store. So let me see if I can get this thing out. All right, in the vise with that part exposed. 13 millimeter deep well socket. Smack it with a hammer a few times, it starts to come right out. And don't forget, you push it in a little. The other one was broken, that's why it came all the way out, but smack it in a little bit, remove this C-clip out of there, and then you can drive it out. All right, so after a little bit of research here, John Deere does not sell this as a serviceable part. They want you to buy the entire drive shaft, and it is $500. That's ridiculous. So what I did was I went to O'Reilly's, came up with some part numbers, and ended up finding this one. I had to order it. It only took a day to get it in, but I mean, this thing's pretty much identical. I mean, it's the same part. So the part number on this thing, 72-1000. It says it's for an ATV, but I mean, this looks just like what I took off. Comes with different grease fittings. It's in the center of it. I mean, this is the part. So don't let John Deere rip you off like they do on everything else. There's your part number. All right, so I got this in. Turns out it wasn't quite exactly right. You can see it's a little bit long. So I actually had to remove some material from the inside of each of these ears in order to get the snap ring grooves cleared. I just used a bastard file in my vise and took it down. It was about a quarter inch, about 250 thousandths thick on each ear is what I took it to. It's probably not ideal. I probably wouldn't do this if I was you. I did do a little bit of research and found a different part number. Try this U-joint, 721380. It's a couple hundred thousandths shorter on this dimension here, so on the length. So try that out before you go filing this all up. I don't advise that. We're going to see how it works, though. Still better than $500. All right, so got it in there. It's running smooth, sounds good. Got it all greased. I ended up taking the floor off, wasn't bad. I take this 2 screws on this panel here, pop that off. Where did I set that? Oh, it's underneath there. And then 15mm socket. I just used my 1/2" impact. Zip them all off, pop it off. You do have to take this knob off here before you pop this cover off. No big deal, I've done that a few times. So yeah, I mean, it made access to this a lot easier. So just go ahead and pop that floor off for as easy as it is. I don't see any reason to take anything else off up here. The hardest part of this is that damn snap ring. That retaining ring right there. See that? There's a retaining ring right there on that yoke. Focus. There's a retaining ring right there. Holds the drift pin in. That's a pain in the butt. Ended up using the 9" straight external from the Icon set from Harbor Freight. But see that slight bend I put in them going that way? That's all it took. I did need to bend them just a little bit. And then I went in from here, got onto the snap ring there, take some finagling. I used that along with my magnet, my stick magnet I was just using to point this thing to hold it, to get the pliers on it. And then once I got on it and squeezed, I used a pry bar to push it on. Working all from the right side of the tractor. And that was the hardest part of getting that back on. It took the longest. I don't have a lot of patience sometimes when it comes to that stuff. You know, I'm one of them guys who likes to complain about the engineers that design this stuff. You know, they should have to service every item on it to have their designs approved. But anyways, that's on, runs good. I'm going to put the floor back on, go drive it around, make sure everything's fine before I button it the rest of the way up. So I'm gonna do that now. All right, guys, well, so I've been running this thing for a while now after fixing that U-joint and the steering line, and it seems to be running pretty good. You know, matter of fact, I think I'm gonna check the hydraulic fluid on it here real quick. I haven't done that for a little while, just make sure everything, yep. Looks good. So, yeah, it's been running pretty good. No issues yet. 623 hours. So, we'll call that fixed and move on to the next thing. Thanks for watching.